Hi, this video is looking at the Paper 2 non-fiction reading exam questions 1 to 6. It is a non-fiction, so it's based on a real thing. The extracts we're looking at are two extracts about Ben Fogle and James Cracknell. So this non-fiction reading exam is 30% the whole grade. It's 1 hour, 1 hour 15 minutes if you have extra time. This will be the section A of paper 2. Section B will be transactional writing. You get 2 extracts to read, 6 questions, and around 18 to 21 out of 40, depending on the paper. So remember, you've got to write an hour of writing after you do section A. So normally 2 extracts will be 200 years apart. However, I've picked 2 extracts by the same people just because I like the extracts. But just in your exam, you have one from the 21st century, one from the 19th. And questions 1 and 2 are from the first extract, 3 and 4 are from the second, 5 and 6 are on both. So I've done 2 colours here, green and yellow, because really there's only 2 kinds of questions in this exam. There's comprehension, so finding quotes in the text, which is the green, and the yellow is language analysis and stuff like that. I will get on to question 6. There's 2 separate ways that you can do it. I have also done a paper 1 reading video as well, and I'll put that in the link. So good exam technique. Leave a 1-line gap between each of your quote PEs. Start a new page for each question. You can always go back and do more. And remember, put quotation marks around every quote. So this is what I mean by the lines and 1 page per question. Because if you finish the exam with a few minutes to go, you can go back to question 2, add more quotes, go back to question 4, add more quotes, and so on, without having to do arrows and complicating things for the examiner. You must time manage, look at the clock before starting each new question. Okay, question 1 and 3, we're going to do them together because they're basically the same. So to find the details in the text that the question is asking for, try to answer a full sentence can be short. So the only difference is they're on different extracts. So question 1 is comprehension on extract 1, question 3 is comprehension on extract 2. So here they are for this one. Why did Ben Fogle think he was going to die on his journey to the South Pole? How much time did the men spend skiing each day? How did James Cracknell cope with the long days? They're all 1 mark, so it's 1 sentence. Okay, A, why did he think he was going to die? Because he walked on a dangerous crevasse. How much time did the men spend skiing? 16 hours. How did James Cracknell cope with the long days? He listened to Andrew Marr's History of Modern Britain. Same with question 3, nice and simple, just find the questions and answers in the text. So what item of clothing is sucked from Ben Fogle's body? His shoes. What items drifted away into the rolling ocean? Is their worldly possessions? And question 3, C, how far away were the men from the nearest boat? You look for that, 200 miles. So really simple and just a tiny little bit of a sentence. If you can't find an answer, leave it. You can't spend 5 minutes looking for 1 mark. That's why I said 1 page per question. You can go back and nicely do it at the end. Okay, question 2 and 4, again, very similar questions. Question 2 is language analysis for source 1, and question 4 is language analysis for source 2. This question is, how does the writer of the newspaper show that Ben's Fogle expedition to the South Pole was full of danger and difficulty? Always make sure you're looking at the right extract. Why do we want a lot of quotes? Well, quotes equals marks, really. So get that into your head. 1 quote equals 1 mark. These 2 people here are just as good at English as each other, but just because the person on the right knew to do a lot of quotes and knew good exam technique, they would have done far better than example 1. So remember, quotes is what we're looking for. So this question is all about picking up quotes and saying the effect on the reader, and zoom in on keyword and think, why has the writer intentionally used these words? Pick as many 1 or 2 word quotes as you can in 15 minutes for a 10-mark question. Once your time is up on a question, move on. You must finish the exam. A lot of the times it's nothing to do with English that will stop you getting your grade 4. It's not finishing all the questions. So when 15 minutes is up, move on to the next question. You need to use a range of quotes. So what I mean by that is from the beginning, middle, and end of the extract. You would get marked down if you just did quotes where this person has. You need to make sure you take quotes from all over to show that you've read the extract, but also there might be something you can talk about of a development in the person through the start to the end of the extract. Be that human dictionary and thesaurus, pick out a certain word and say what they mean. So say if the question was, how does the writer show the man's injury? And the quote was, he shattered his leg. You've got to zoom into that specific word. It doesn't say he hurt his leg. It doesn't say he's injured his leg. It said he shattered his leg. So think about glass and a mirror. What happens if you shatter it? What happens to the glass? Well, if we looked it up in a dictionary, it would literally say broken into small pieces, destroyed. And all you've really got to do is put that into your answer. So I put the writer shows the man's injury with the quote, he shattered his leg. This tells me his leg has been destroyed and broken into many small pieces. So that would get me a mark. What wouldn't get me a mark is what a lot of students do is when they give me a generic answer, where instead of saying shattered, this means it's destroyed and broken into small pieces. They may say something like shattered, this purple bit here, shattered, this tells me he's really hurt his leg. Or this makes it exciting for the reader. That won't get you a mark. You've got to zoom into the specific word. So again, this one was about living in a tough prison. And it said, I slept on a concrete slab. Why does that show that it's tough? Well, again, concrete, human dictionary, this tells it was made of stone and really uncomfortable. If we look at another question, so one teacher tip I've got for this question is look for the verbs and adjectives that stand out. So if the sentence was he spoke to his mother, there's not going to be a lot I can say. If I put he screamed at his mother, I can zoom into scream and tell me the character's angry. So another one, how does the writer show his girlfriend was wealthy? If it would have said her family had a house, or I can't say much about it, but the writers used mansion. It says mansion. You zoom into mansion, and this tells me it's a very large, impressive house. But really, another tip with this question is if there's an easy quote, get an easy mark. You get an easy 1 mark by not explaining it. So if the quote is obvious, there's no need to explain. So let's say the question again is the same. How does the writer show the trip was dangerous? If the quote literally says it was incredibly dangerous, you can put the writer showed the trip was dangerous as it says it was incredibly dangerous. So if it's a really, really obvious quote, don't waste time explaining it. If you're looking to do 8 or 9 quotes, you're not going to be able to do this more than maybe twice, but you can still get 2 marks just by doing easy ones. And one other tip for this question is track through all the way through the text, go through the quotes in order, and briefly talk about each one. The more quotes, the better. So again, the question was how does the writer show the trip was difficult? So you're looking for 8 to 10 quotes, just underline them on the extract to show that it was difficult. And that's your sort of rough structure. Okay, here are the ones I did. So maybe you can pause the video and see if you can write a few of your answers. These are the ones that stood out to me. And again, if the writer uses a stat this won't really happen in fiction, but in a non-fiction exam, if the writer uses a stat, they do it for a reason, and these are good ones to do answers on. So one stat that tells us is that South Pole, it was bitterly cold and the temperature was as low as minus 50 degrees centigrade, all right, Celsius. So again, they've given us that for a reason. It's not saying it was a nice temperature. Why is why is the writer telling us that? It's basically telling us it's incredibly cold and freezing and bitter and horrible. So I've put the writer shows that Ben Fogle's expedition to the South Pole was full of danger and difficulty, with the quote temperature as low as 50. This would be an incredibly tough and freezing temperature to try and trek in a hostile environment. So my yellow is my link to the question, danger and difficulty. My blue is my quote, and my green is the effect on the reader and why is the writer said that. Remember, you need quotes in every single answer you do. So again, another one, be a human dictionary. What else stands out? So another one that stood out was it doesn't just say there was a crack in the ice. It says there was just giant crack in the ice that Ben Fogle nearly fell into. So again, human dictionary, human source. What are the connotations of giant? So it's intimidating, violent, dangerous, enormous. And yeah, so a quote again is a giant crack in the ice. And my answer is the writer shows Fogle's trip was dangerous by describing the crevasse as giant. This suggests the crevasse was intimidating, enormous. Fogle would die if he fell into it. So again, I've got my 1 is my link to my question in blue, my yellow is my quote number 2, and my 3, the effect on the reader. So I need 3 parts when I do my answer. Occasionally you don't have to do the green if it's a really, really obvious quote. And I guess you don't have to start each time with the writer shows the trip was dangerous, difficult. You could just start with the quote. However, I would do it occasionally because it's really good to keep linking back and keeps you focused on the question. Okay, another one, really simple one. He thought he was going to die. This shows it's dangerous as Fogle's life was at risk. Again, easy quote. If it's an easy one, just shove it in an answer. So we're told that the guy's got frostbite, blisters, hypothermia, and pneumonia. And I put, remember, if it's really obvious, just put it in a sentence. No need to explain. And I put, it shows it's dangerous as the man had medical problems like frostbite, blisters, hypothermia, pneumonia. Really, really easy. Okay. Again, look for the adjectives to stand out. It said it was grueling. What does grueling mean? It basically means it's physically and mentally horrible or demanding. Again, I've got my 3 parts of my answer then. Again, another really easy one. He calls it the hardest thing he's ever done. So I've not explained. I've just said the writer says it's difficult. As Fogle says, it's the hardest thing he's ever done. Nice, easy one. Another one, the vast hostile landscape was no signs of wildlife, not even a single bird. So I'll explain this one a bit. I've put vast hostile suggests the emptiness and aggression of the South Pole, while suggesting out no help if trouble comes. And the fact not even a single bird lives there suggests that any living thing will struggle to survive there. And there you go. So I've got 7, but in a few of them I've got a couple of quotes. So I've almost got like maybe 9 or 10 quotes, and most of them I've got my 3 parts: my question, my quote, and my effect on my reader. Okay, question 4. Okay, so it's just the same as question 2, but on the other extract. 15 minutes, 10 marks. Try to do 5 to 10 quotes. And this is the second extract, which is about in 2000, the men set off together for a 7-week race across the Atlantic Ocean in the rowing boats. Remember, it's Ben Fogle and James Cracknell. This extract describes Ben rowing the boat while James was sleeping. And the question is, how well do you think Ben Fogle's autobiographical account captures his feelings about the power of the ocean? So this is Ben writing it. And so you've got to basically comment on anything he says about the power of the ocean. And again, we want a lot of quotes because quotes equals marks. Pick as many 1 or 2 quotes as you can in 15 minutes, but you've got to move on after that. You must finish the exam. Questions 5 and 6 are really easy, so we really want to get to them. Again, be that human dictionary, pick out words that stand out and say what they mean. So let's say he says, I was horrified when I saw the wave. So again, zoom into horrified. What does it mean? Well, it basically means being extremely shocked and scared. So all you've got to do is put that into the answer. So I put the writer captures his feelings with the quote, I was horrified when I saw the wave. This shows Fogel was extremely shocked and scared when he saw the wave. So I've zoomed into horrified and basically given the definition of my answer. Again, if there's easy answers, just put them in your answer and don't bother explaining. So if the quote was, I was so happy when I saw the wave decrease, easy answer would be, the writer tells the reader he was so happy when the waves were getting smaller. So really, really simple. All I've done is put the quote I want into my answer, and I haven't bothered explaining because it's so easy. Okay, another quote says that when Bo Fogel was rowing, it says a wall of white water towering over our tiny boat. So again, think about what a wall of water will look like. Think what a tower is. They're comparing it to a tiny boat, so that how big a tower is compared to a tiny boat. And I put the writer uses language to describe the power of the sea with the quote, a wall of white water towering over our tiny boat. This tells the reader the waves are extremely large and nearly vertical, and you could carry on by saying compared to the size of Fogel's boat. So again, I got my 3 parts. My yellow is my question, my green is my quote, and my blue is the effect on the reader. Ben Fogle tumbled through like clothes in a washing machine. So this is what Ben Fogle's basically doing when he capsizes in the boat. So you can explain that. The writer uses language to describe the power of the sea with tumble through like clothes in a washing machine. This simile tells the reader that Ben is being mauled all over the place. And then you could zoom into roughly because it says he's roughly done it. And this suggests it's almost done violently. So he's not like drifting around really slowly. Roughly means it's really quick, really fast, really horribly that he's been sucked into the sea. Another one, torrent of water crashed over the boat. So again, zoom into the word crash. What kind of thing is a car crash? The writer, blah, blah, blah. This tells the reader that a huge amount of water, so that's the torrent bit, hit the hoe in a sudden and violent way. So that is the crash bit. So again, I've zoomed into 2 parts of the quotes there. Another one, it says a monstrous wave gathered behind the boat. Again, zoom into the adjectives. It could have just said a wave gathered behind the boat. We wouldn't say anything. It could have said a big wave, a tiny wave, I don't know, a erratic wave. But zoom into the word monstrous. The writer has used it on purpose to give an effect on the reader. And think about what a monster is. Yeah, monster. Frightful, hideous, revolting, shocking, grotesque. That is how he wants the wave to come across into the reader's mind. So I put Fogel describing the wave as monstrous, tells the reader he feels it's huge, monstrous, intimidating. I didn't mean to put monstrous there. That is actually a good thing to remember, actually. Never repeat the quote in your answer. So if I was changing that now, I'd say it tells the reader he feels it's huge, grotesque, and intimidating. Another one, it says the churning surf gobbled up the boat. So if you knew what churning mean, you could zoom into that. I'm just going to, for this answer, zoom into gobbled. So it doesn't just say the churning surf took our boat. It is gobbled up. So think about if you eat something in a gobbling way. What is it? Well, it basically means hastily, hungrily, noisily. Yeah, like Mr. Bean here. And my answer is Vogel, describing the surf as having gobbled up the boat, tells the reader it feels it's devoured the boat in its entirety. So it's not taking a little bit of the boat, it's taking the whole thing. Question 5. This is the first question in the exam where you have to use both texts. And the question, this one is, using information from both texts, explain briefly the weather conditions faced by Vogel in the Atlantic Ocean and the South Pole. So info for question 5 then, it's the same as question 1 and 3, but it's for both texts. So basically it's comprehension, but you put it into sentences. As it's 4 marks, you only need to pick up 2 quotes from each text. You don't need to compare in this question and no point evidence to explain, or you don't need to analyse or explain your answers. Remember, if it's a low mark question, so 1 mark, 2 mark, 3 mark, 4 mark, it is basically comprehension. So find the quotes the examiner wants you to find and put it into a sentence. Like I say, you don't need to compare. You get no marks for comparing in this question. So it'll be a waste of time. Remember, it's a 4 mark question, you've got 5 minutes to do it. It is quite an easy question. It's a really good chance to get 4 marks out of 4. Don't worry if you feel like repeating points from previous questions. So this question's about the weather. Maybe if question 2 or question 4 you talked about maybe something to do with analysing the sort of the weather in your answer, it's absolutely fine again to repeat the same quotes. Be clear which texture you're talking about. A biggest thing that students do wrong in 5 and 6 is they don't make it clear which extract they're talking about. If you don't make it clear to the examiner, you'll get a big fat 0. Okay, so remember there's 2 extracts then. Make it clear whichever way you feel best. So you could put source 1 or source 2. In a real exam where it's 2 extracts from 2 different people, you could use their surnames or just use your common sense in any way to make it clear. So really simply, I'm going to choose the one about the rowing across the Atlantic. I'm going to call the Atlantic, and the one about trekking across the South Pole, I'm going to call it South Pole. Okay. Remember, it's both texts, and it's the weather conditions. So remember, anything's not to do with the weather, don't include, so you won't get marks. So anytime they mention it being thunder or snow or rain or sleet, whatever, you're looking for 2 quotes from each extract. And remember, it's brief, it's just comprehension. So maybe if it's 4 quotes, you're probably looking for 4 bullet points. Okay. So if you want to find these extracts, if you just type in Ben Fogel, GCSE English Language, they're easy to find. Although you don't really need to look at the extracts really, because we're just explaining how to do the video. What we learn in this video, you can just do some mocks and just use the techniques we've learned here. So you would highlight 2 or 3 quotes in each extract about just the weather. Remember, it's only 4 marks, 2 marks for each. Here are the ones I highlighted. We'll talk about them in a sec. So remember, this is how I'd want you to structure it. So 2 separate paragraphs, one with Atlantic, one with South Pole, and then really just pick out the quotes about the weather and put them into a sentence. You should make it a sentence. You shouldn't just copy down quotes. So just do a little sentence starter each time with Fogel or he, and then put the sentence. So I've put, Fogel says there was a 50-mile-an-hour ever increasing wind. He also says there was the sound of thunder. And for the South Pole one, he says that bitterly cold winds push the temperatures as low as 50. He also says it never rained once. So really simple. I'm not analysing. I'm not comparing. This is all the examiner wants you to do. You might think this is easy, and you'd be right. It's an easy question. It's just testing your comprehension skills and picking out the correct quotes. And all the examiner would do would be to tick your quotes. Easy peasy, 4 out of 4. Okay, if we move on to question 6. Okay, so question 6 is, again, both of these texts are about expeditions. Compare the difficulties Cracknell and Fogel endured on their expeditions. Okay, so it's the same as question 5, but you need more quotes. The question is worth 10 marks this time. So this means you need to pick out 4 or 5 quotes from each text. You don't need to compare in this question. I will talk about that in a second. And again, you don't need to explain. I'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so again, you can use previous quotes and previous questions in this answer. Okay, and again, be clear which one you're talking about. Like we've talked about before, you could call them source 1, source 2. In a normal exam, you could refer the extracts by their surnames. But again, I'm just going to use the one about the Atlantic Ocean, I'm going to call Atlantic, and the one about the South Pole, I'm going to call South Pole. Okay, so you'll notice here in the question, it does say compare. So I would say if you're someone who's looking for a grade 4, 5, 6, maybe even 7, you don't need to compare in this question. If you're someone really going for the grade 9, you will. This video is more aimed at 4, 5, 6, 7. So you can get 8 out of 10 in this question, but by using exactly the same techniques we just used in question 5. Same with explain. You don't need to explain. Just put your quotes embed them into a sentence, and you can get 8 out of 10. Okay, so this question then, you're looking at both the extracts again, and you're looking at the difficulties that Cracknell and Fogel had to put up with on their expedition. So, for example, um, James Cracknell and Fogel on the Atlantic one, their boat capsizes. That's basically what the extract is about. And then the South Pole one, they had loads of problems. So they couldn't eat enough food. It was bitterly cold, and so on. Okay, so again, yeah. So if you went through the extracts anytime they were really cold, or were they hungry, or the boat capsized, any sort of negative things that went on, this is what the question's looking for. So again, this time now, you're looking for 4 or 5 quotes in each extract about what the difficulties the men faced, highlight them like this, and then same again, put them into a sentence. Okay, so again, I'm going to do my paragraph. There's one about my Atlantic Ocean, that's one about the South Pole, and all I'm going to do is put my quotes embed them into a sentence with a sentence starter that is linked to the question. So again, it's the difficulties they faced on their expeditions. So the men had to deal with an ever increasing wind at 50 mile an hour. This is the Atlantic one, the rowing one. Fogel had to row during frenzy conditions and a monstrous wave. The boat capsized during their voyage, the boat collapsing on top of me. James was lost for a time in the water during the trip. There was still no sign of James. They lost their personal items in the water. All our worldly possessions drifted away. The South Pole one, Fogel says he thought he was going to die when he nearly fell into a crevasse. Fogel got frostbite, then burnt my lips, got blisters on my feet and hypothermia. Cracknell also had medical problems such as a chest infection. The men had to suffer difficult weather, temperatures as low as 50 degrees centigrade and Celsius. And then the men had to deal with long freezing days. So again, all the examiner would do is mark my quotes. Like I say, this would get you 8 out of 10. If you're someone's looking for 9 or 10, you could maybe zoom into a few of these quotes. So you could zoom into monstrous and say, this shows the wave that was on Fogel was dominating and intimidating. You could maybe zoom into the word frenzy and talk it being like the conditions were very manic and intense. Yeah. So if you want to do that, but I would say it's the last question in the exam. It's actually on average the question the students get the lowest mark on. So I would say do it like I've taught you here. You can get 8 out of 10, and that would be really good. Okay. Any questions? Leave a comment.